Today's episode is sponsored by Permanent Hearing Damage, which is a recording studio based in Philadelphia, owned and operated by Steve Roche from Seisha, Off Minor, Boer War, which you're hearing now, and many others. They've spent the last 25 years specializing in recording, mixing, mastering for punk, hardcore, metal, and related genres at artist-friendly prices. Some recent clients include Piers, Foxtails, Masanera, Closer, Rambo, Stinking Lizaveta, Sanagi, and Witching. Contact Permanent Hearing Damage via their website, permanenthearingdamage.com. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to sign up to read zines, get music sneak peeks, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Martingale Hold by With Open Arms, featuring my new pal Violet Reed on vocals. The song comes from their 3-song debut EP, which you can find on Bandcamp. God looks all over the world to give these problems to. And never gives them to anyone who can't have.
Both my parents were always deeply involved in music for me growing up. And it was always really important for me, especially as a child, to go to shows. The earliest show that I can remember going to is when I was 5. My parents took me to go see the Pixies in Bakersfield.
Holy moly.
Yeah. And I'm not from Bakersfield, just a lot of my dad's family is, so we just happened to line up. But probably the first time I went to a show that I actually saw in the newspaper and picked out was I was in 6th grade in 2016, and I was reading the newspaper, and I saw that Black Sabbath was performing at Oracle Arena in Oakland. I think it was like probably 6 or 7 days after my birthday in September, and I remember holding up the newspaper to my father, and I was like, "We have to go," and so. I think it had already sold out by the time that, we got around to trying to get tickets. So we went to the venue and, we scalped tickets outside and we got the highest level nosebleeds possible. And the show was amazing. Ozzy's an incredible performer. But the moment that War Pigs came on and the entire arena was singing War Pigs, because if you like Black Sabbath, you got to know War Pigs. Mm-hmm. And I think in my mind that I felt it in my soul. That was a moment I felt reverberate through my body. And I think what was I? I was 12 at the time, 11 or 12, and I was like, holy shit, this is what music is for me. And so I think, it really grasped me and took a hold of me. And so my dad continued to take me to punk stuff. I saw L7 in 6th grade or 7th grade or whatever. And, X and all of the, reunion bands that came around. But I definitely say seeing War Pigs in 2016 was probably seeing Black Sabbath perform War Pigs was probably my moment in music where I was like, this is something that I will continue to be a part of for the rest of my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up as a metal kid. So yeah, I think that's probably the best answer I can give to that question.
Did you hear the T-Pain cover of that?
Are you kidding me?
It was good.
No,
Huh?
I haven't.
It's good. It's
Okay,
really
I
good.
will have to listen.
Yeah,
You know,
like
I that's awesome. No,
for all the like for all of like T-Pain's like for all the notoriety about him using vocal effects and stuff, like he's an amazing singer, and like yeah, it's good. It's real good.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's like have you seen that video of Post Malone singing "Hey There, Delilah"? Like 2017 era.
I have not.
He uses all that autotune, but when the autotune comes off, also an amazing singer. So
Yeah.
I believe you. I
Yeah.
will be listening to that after this
Yeah, you should
interview
find it.
ends.
It's really cool. And
Fuck yeah.
yeah, it's got the Ozzy stamp of approval as well. Like Ozzy was like, we should rip a gig or something like that, in the comments. But it was
Oh,
funny.
that's
Um,
awesome. Yeah, okay, I'll for sure have to
yeah,
listen to that.
are you an Ozzy only Sabbath fan, or are you just kind of like? Because I kind of am. I like Ozzy Sabbath. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of am like those two albums with Dio though. Like those fuck.
Okay, they're good albums. I don't know.
It's fine. I mean,
Ozzy's him for me, like
Yeah, yeah.
I watched, I can't remember when I watched them, but I remember watching Decline of Western Civilization 1, 2, and 3, like back to back to back. And the metal years are like that. Obviously, number 2 is an evil watch. It's a hard watch, but the
Yeah.
Ozzy part is so funny. I just love Ozzy. I think he's just
Yeah.
such a character. I think that I probably am an Ozzy only Sabbath person.
I don't
Um,
I don't want anybody ever to like dispel my ideas of like what Ronnie James Dio would be like if he was still alive. Like I don't he's dead, right? So I don't need to go and find out if he was like homophobic or whatever
right.
cuz he's dead, right? But like in my head canon, all the pieces of shit like Alice Cooper and stuff that are all transphobic and shit, like Ronnie James Dio, if he was still alive, like in my head he'd be like, you all fucking suck, you know?
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, because like I just feel like I don't know, like I just feel like there's a quality to his stuff that isn't. It's not straight, in my opinion.
It's kind of clear.
Yeah. I mean, all of his fucking obsession with rainbows and all, and I know that that's like a thing that kind of came later, but like, I just am like, yeah, my headcanon is that at the very least, he'd be a staunch ally, and he'd be like, nah, D. Snyder from Twisted Sister, like seriously, you're transphobic? Like what the fuck? Like
Dude, I
your
didn't even
whole
know
shit
that.
is
I
yeah.
used to be a huge Twisted Sister
Yeah.
fan.
Your whole
Fuck.
shit is like your wife like put you in drag to go
Yeah,
out
what?
on stage, and like that was your whole shit, and
You can't be transphobic while in drag. Are you kidding
like
me?
but yeah, I don't know, like that's my headcanon, and like
You know what? I like that headcanon. I'd like
yeah.
to believe that too. I'm not going to go dig deep and try and figure
Yeah,
that out.
I purposely am like, do not Google Dio homophobic, or what? I purposely stay away from that, but I've never heard anything to contradict it so far, and don't.
That's true.
Like anybody listening, don't get in my mentions. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd rather remain ignorant.
Yeah, like I said, he's dead, so we can let that one rest. But
Yeah, I agree with that.
yeah, but so you had this sort of moment when you were pretty young by most accounts. Like people aren't trying to play in bands mostly in like sixth grade or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and your dad was taking you to all kinds of shows and stuff. Was your dad like involved in like the punk scene and stuff like locally when you were growing up, or just like he knew about that stuff?
So no, both of my parents. So my dad grew up in Bakersfield, and he was raised religious, but it wasn't for him. So he was like, secretly sneaking, like, metal records under his bed. But he was never really involved in any sort of punk scene. However, my mom grew up in LA, and got involved in the punk scene when she, I think, was in 7th grade, right around when, like right after Darby Crash died, actually. So she, like, watching movies like Decline of Western Civilization, or like Repo Man, or Slog, which is a slightly lesser known documentary that's pretty low quality, but you can find it on YouTube. She recognizes people in those movies. But I would never say my parents weren't ever actually involved in my local scene. My dad a little bit, because he moved to San Francisco in the 90s. And so he went to a lot of concerts out here and a lot of shows. And he went to college in San Diego. And so he got to see a ton of amazing bands at like the Che. And I think there's a different place called the Back Door that he would see a ton of stuff at. But no, I actually, I would say all the shows that I went to as, a early teenager and like a kid, weren't really involved in the local scene. Mm-hmm. They're mostly just touring bands coming through. But I would say I got involved in my local scene when I was 14, through when I started my first magazine.
And like, since that was your sort of throughway into like DIY punk or whatever, like, mm-hmm. What was your intro to like zines and stuff?
So, okay. So during COVID, I had a friend that went to my high school, and I wasn't, going out and seeing, really that many people besides 2 friends of mine. And I was surfing a lot because that's, you can't really do too many action sports. And so one of my friends one day, was like, hey, I was at Amoeba Records and I picked up this copy of Aaron Comet Bus's number, I think 52, issue 52, Postmortem, his most recent zine. And I was like, I don't know. Yeah, I was like, I don't know who that is. And she was like, she was like, my mom like used to know him a little bit. He was like really involved in Gilman. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'll go pick up a copy. It was like $4 or whatever. And genuinely, I read that and it changed everything for me. And I think I still, to this day, it remains one of my favorite zines of all time. Yeah.
Oh,
what were you gonna say?
I played a show once, in I don't know, maybe 2001, somewhere around there, with my band Keikyo Body, and we played with this band called Zagoda, and he was on tour with them, so I met him once.
Really?
Yeah, really cool.
I was in New York pretty recently, working on my most recent zine, and I got, too wrapped up in just exploring and I really meant to go to his bookstore and I totally forgot, but I to this day I remain a huge Comet Bus fan, but I'd say that's probably my introduction to zines. And then pretty quickly after that, I ended up getting put in a group chat on Instagram in I'd say maybe January or February 2021. That was just a bunch of punks in my local scene. And actually 2 of the people from that group chat are now my roommates. But two people in that group chat who aren't my roommates, actually both had zines that they'd started. And I'm not, friends with them anymore. Neither zine actually exists. But at this point. But to me, I didn't know that people still made zines.
Yeah.
I was unaware that people still cared, Mm-hmm. And so it completely inspired me to make. They were just interviewing local bands. I think one of the zines interviewed Ian MacKaye, and I was just like, holy shit, I could I can do this. Like, all these people are like, 14, 15, and you can interview whoever the fuck you want. That's sick. And I didn't realize that you could, in a way, I don't think I processed the fact that you can be involved in music outside of like listening to records and going to shows.
Right.
And so I sat down in my room and I think probably for 2 weeks I didn't do anything else. I didn't do my schoolwork. My parents were pretty upset. And all I did was like make this really, really tiny scrappy zine that I think 4 people bought. But I was so stoked on it. And it was under an old name. It was called Spectacular Degenerate. And I was like, fuck, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to make zines. And I don't know, I just had so much fun that I just decided that I should, never stop doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, why? Like, why? It just
Yeah.
takes time. And are you like all analog or all digital, or like is it a little bit of both? Like in the creation part.
Okay, so it used to be all analog.
Right.
Probably, okay, so I had a different zine for, I'd say, about a year and a half. And it was called Spectacular Degenerate, and I released 2 issues of that. And both of those, were completely made by hand. And, the whole 9 yards, the typewriter, the printing out the pictures or like scrapbooking them or, all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I just realized that it took me so much time to format like interviews into the zine, because if I like typed out words wrong, I'd have to cut and paste them and like rearrange the sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
And so I talked to those 2 people who both ran zines, and I was like, what do you use? And they both gave me like super, honestly, somewhat unhelpful advice, because they would just put it into Google Docs and then print it out and then do the same thing that I was doing. And so eventually I think I just came around. I finally now do it digitally. And I use this formatting thing called Pages, which is like on MacBooks, which rocks.
Okay.
And it's all like, I was put on by my friend Ruby, who writes this zine called Unrequited. And she uses that, and it's all meant for formatting like books. It's like so user friendly. It's insane.
Yeah, I am still like, when it comes to that part, like I still am like, I have the paper mock-up with like the numbers on it that I like take apart to where when I'm formatting it, because I don't have like a system for like I do that in Photoshop. I create the pages in either Photoshop or Procreate, depending on if I'm doing a lot of drawing or if I'm just doing, formatting like you mentioned.
Right.
But there is still a part of the whole process where I'm like, if I did do this all by hand, I could make it look cooler, because I'm not that good at Photoshop, Like there are people that are really good at it, and I'm like jealous, but like I'm like, if I did this all by hand, I could make it look cooler, because there's all that like charm to like the Xerox effect and you can do that in Photoshop if you're good at it. But I watch a tutorial and my brain just goes in circles, like,
oh my God. Yeah.
I'm like, what layer? What do you call this? Like, what's a clipping mask? I'm like, I have no idea.
It makes no sense. Okay. Photoshop is like
wizardry,
a hellscape. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It is not, I like to think of Photoshop as like a club. You either know Photoshop or you don't.
Yeah.
And like, you can kind of half-ass Photoshop, but I just genuinely suck at using it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm definitely not in the Photoshop club. I'd say that maybe I'm on the outside circle.
Yeah.
Where I dropped out of college a while ago, but I still have my login, so I still use my free Photoshop account from that until they kick me off.
Until they figured it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I figured out a little bit, but and so it's just so evil to me. So I really try and avoid Photoshop. My parents are really good at Photoshop, but it's just not meant for me.
Yeah. Well, there's also the thing too when you go on YouTube to look at a tutorial, and it's never the version that you're using. Because I got a hacked version from 3 years ago or whatever. Somebody's using the latest thing, and they're like, and then you can just do this, and I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how does that take you into where you're introduced to more or less the DIY scene that we're both here because of now?
Okay, so so we're still we're going back to the group chat.
Sure.
We're still in COVID when this group chat's around,
Mm-hmm.
And so we would talk about, most of the people in this group chat had gone to DIY shows pre-COVID. I'd been lucky enough to go when I saw L7, I want to say 2017, 2018, I got to go to a club in San Francisco that's no longer around called Slim's. But that's the closest thing I ever got to go to that was a punk club. And I used to play, play a lot of soccer, travel soccer. And the soccer fields were right across the street from 924 Gilman. So one time I stopped in there to go to the bathroom. But other than that, I hadn't really gotten to go to a DIY show. And so coming out of COVID, one of the zines in that group chat was like, I want to host a show. But and we were all into punk at the time, the screamo, and anything else, any of the genres that I involve myself in with more now weren't even in the picture yet. And so no venue in the area wanted to take any of the bands seriously that were trying to be booked at venues. And so I'd say this is about July 2021 now. And so their solution was to find somebody's parents with a generator and throw a show at this, I guess what would be a semi-abandoned dog park. And yeah, I said July 2021 was the first real DIY show I ever went to. And I helped them with their zine table. And it was a fundraiser. And so it was really, really sick to be able to see people involved in their community trying to throw a show, but also it to benefit the community itself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just never stopped from there. And all of a sudden, every show that my friends were doing, I was just, running the zine table, or I was, I picked up a film camera for the first time during COVID. And so I got enlisted as the photographer. And so there's never a part where I was just, after that, when DIY was able to start back up after COVID, there was never a moment where I was just, a showgoer. I was always doing something, which felt really good. It was really cool to be able to feel like I was a part of the moment. And so, yeah, it never stopped from there. And yeah, and I just slowly got more and more involved. I just, and then I want to say 2022, I started booking my own shows, because, I was able to get access to booking at Gilman, and so it just never stopped from there. But yeah, I would say that generator shows in 2021 were my very first introduction into in-person real punk DIY down to its roots.
Yeah. And what bands were you really into at that point, either locally or nationally that you're aware of?
Oh my God. Let's see. What bands was I, let me look at this. The bands that I was really into at that time, I'm going to go back and try and find a playlist. I know I can't I'm trying to think of bands that I was seeing a lot. It was a lot of punk bands, a lot of local punk bands, a lot of ones that aren't actually really around anymore. But the music that I was listening to was probably pretty traditional into punk. I was listening to a lot of let's see. I was listening to a lot of like Violent Femmes, 45 Grave, a lot of like the Cramps, some like ska, like Skank and Pickle. It was just I was truly like, really into punk and like Big Black. And so yeah, I just like I think I was very traditionally into punk. But I'm trying to like local bands that I was seeing were probably bands like more a big thing at the time was like gimmicks, because to get people out to shows it was like you had to like shock them into coming out.
Sure.
So I remember a band one time had a gimmick where they made a trail of bananas to the show, and the theme was to bring bananas and wear yellow. I remember going to that and then getting lost because people took all the bananas on the trail to it, but they never post the location.
Yeah, I don't, eventually they're all gone, right?
Oh yeah, people ate them and shit.
Yeah.
Because there was, it was like
free
punks
bananas.
Food on the ground. Come on, free food? Are you kidding me? But yeah, I ended up finding the show. It was great. I did lose the car that I went in. We lost in Golden Gate Park for 3 hours after that, though. But that's a story for a different day. But yeah, I can't really remember the bands that I was seeing at the time, but they were all, they were punk bands, and
yeah,
they were sick. I had fun,
How does this all like? Is it just like a slowly but surely you find your way into like screamo or like emotional hardcore, or like was there like a specific show you went to where you were like, oh wait, this whole other thing exists?
So okay, yeah. So this comes up a fair amount because a lot of touring bands stay at my apartment, and the topic of how did you get into this comes up quite a bit. And I got raised on, the punk shit. So I got raised on like Rites of Spring, and like Fugazi, and some of the, obviously in like a little bit of Embrace. And so some of the emo core stuff. But I think the first like screamo band that I ever heard was just random. It was me and my friend Odin were sitting in class in high school. And I remember him turning to me. He was like, have you heard of this band called Seisha? And I was like, you know what? For some weird reason, I actually have. And because it sounded like nothing I'd really heard before in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, have you listened to this band, I Hate Sex? I found them pretty recently. And he was like, no. And so we sat there and we like shared a pair of headphones, and we were like, holy shit, like this is really good. And it was like nothing I'd really ever heard before. So I want to say this is like 2021. And so, but I didn't know that people were still making this genre of music, if that makes sense. Like I didn't know that people cared. I thought it was dead. Because every band that seemed to pop up on my radar was like had disbanded 20 years ago. And so And so I randomly actually found the I Hate Sex email and sent in an email to Nicole Boychuk and was like, can I interview you for my zine? And she said yes. And so I was like stoked on that. And it was a pretty short interview over email. And then randomly, right after that happened, some people that I knew started a screamo band, and they played their first show. And I remember this very distinctly, January 1st, 2023. And it was mind-blowing. They're not around anymore, but they were called Treasure Island. I highly recommend checking them out. They had a guitarist, which rocked. And then there was a different band that was around for a much shorter amount of time called Design that played with them. And it was like so abrasive in a way that I'd never experienced before, or had like gotten through punk. And so, yeah, I was like, fuck, like people still do this. And then, the Stacia reunion happened. And turns out this entire time there'd actually been this deep history of screamo in the Bay Area that I hadn't realized. And yeah, and then we kind of just, I became much closer friends with my now roommate, Corey, who books under, in the Bay Area, books under Ineffable Productions. And Corey and I would just sit in the car and Corey like put me on to all this screamo that was happening in LA. And like, and I never really met anybody that was like currently interested in like screamo that was happening now. And so Corey was able to, teach me and tell me about bands like Widow Dusk and Claybirds and bands that I'm like, very fortunate enough to like know personally and like have booked their bands now. But yeah, it was like a culmination of a lot of different really lucky things that kind of just, fell into my hands and, the people that I was around. But it was really cool. So yeah, I'd say that was a long answer to that. But yeah,
it's a good answer. I mean, you made the point that you didn't know people were still doing this. And it's funny because I can't help think that, when people think that it's like it is a thing that people made in like 1998 and then it didn't happen at all, like you're so close. It's like I mean, for real, around like 2004 or whatever, and like there was still bands, of course, but like when Coma Regalia started in 2010, like we were straight up just not playing with screamo bands like almost ever, because there was there was like 2 per state, like
right, yeah,
and we were the one in Indiana, it was like
right, which is a really I actually had a really interesting, like funny, very short conversation about this last night with my friend Otto and his friend and bandmate Ace while we were on the phone, and we were talking about a band that I'm booking that has sold out some shows, and Ace is I think late 30s, and he was like screamo bands are selling out shows? Are you serious? And he's like, that's that big of a thing right now, really? And I was like, like you thought screamo money was a joke, but it really isn't a joke these days. And I was like, I feel like screamo was something you were like, I don't know if screamo was ever meant to be this big, but like here we are. And like it was just a funny twist of events that like because like when the first screamo show I ever went to, there was maybe like 20-30 people there, and so I that's what I thought screamo was. And then
that's pretty typical, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And then I went to Stacia and I was like, damn, there's 600 people in this venue right now, are you fucking kidding me? But then every show I went to after that summer in 2023, that's actually how I met Viggy. I randomly went to, because after the Stacia, I was like, fuck, well, now I have to find every screamo show that's happening in the Bay Area. And really, there was only one a month, maybe. and I just happened to go to the Drought first show, and so I met Viggy there because Drought fucking rocked, even though they're not technically screamo, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and
it's close enough. It's good.
It's close enough.
We'll claim them.
We'll claim, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
if they'll have
and
us.
so yeah, it was sick. I just like, and now there's in the Bay Area, there's like a screamo show once a week, which is insane to me, but it's fucking awesome. So
yeah,
the boom has happened.
Yeah, it's wild. It's I don't know. I want to say that, you know, maybe around 2016 is when there was a long time when we were just playing like with, you know, and I won't count like a twinkle band just because they scream every once in a while, you know what I mean? Which is like, I'm not like even disparaging any of the bands that we played with, like, but like, you know, we would just play with bands that weren't screamo because there weren't any, and it's weird because you can go through those times like when it was like there weren't that many bands, and the bands that are there are like incredible, you know, like you know, Bon Iver and stuff like that, you know.
Yes.
The bands that were there were incredible, like no doubt about it, you know, like Belle Epoque and Yage and, you know, all these bands that, I mean, Yage was, they played at my old house like in the late 90s, so that's a bad example. Yeah. But like, you know, Ditro and, you know, like the bands that were there were incredible, but it's like, as far as like now I could book a show in my town with like only screamo bands from this state, you know, and that just like would not have happened, you know, in 2010. It was just like, there were 2 bands in Chicago. There were, you know, and now it's like Chicago's like screamo Midwest Mecca, you know, or whatever. But like, yeah, it's wild. Yeah. It's a really like, it's a really, it's a really wild time, like to be seeing like, you know, Orchid tours, but yet like at the same time, like Catalyst is one of the like bigger band, you know, like a band like Catalyst maybe not sell out as big a venue as Orchid, but from what I understand, like when they play, there's a shit ton of people there. And so it's like really cool that it's not just this thing where it's because of bands like legacy bands or however you want to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. Or reunion or whatever you want to call them. Yeah, I'm actually seeing Orchid tonight after this, which is funny.
Awesome. But I mean, yeah, I don't, I have to, every time when I think of like, you know, bands like Orchid, like they did the thing back 20 years ago where what we're talking about, where it's like they played plenty of shows for 20 people, you know, like we see the shows online, like the big fests and stuff where there's hundreds of people, and it looks like that was just like that back then, but it's like it wasn't. I was playing shows back then too, and you know, it wasn't like that, but like it's cool that they get to come back and play for as many people as they are, because
as they deserve.
Yeah, exactly, as they deserve. But when I think, like, yeah, I have to be like, hey, please come to Coma Regalia shows now, because like in 20 years, if we're still here at all or whatever, like I'll be too old. Like I can't, I'm the same age as Orchid now, so you can't wait 20 years. Like don't make Coma Regalia cool in 20 years. Like make us cool now, please. Thank you. Bye.
It's our time to shine. Come on.
Like we need to, or I should have, you know, we're on like this summer will be 15 years that we've been a thing, and it's like I should have broken up like after 2 years of being a band so that in 5 more years we'll be cool, but it's too late for that.
That is so funny. Yeah, because if you're the screamo band that stays around for 15 years, you are a rare breed of screamo band.
Yeah. I mean, that's
most bands get what, like the 2-year lifespan.
right. I mean,
it's a
there's
short
us and
genre.
Jillian Carter. I don't know who else
Yes.
there is, you know? There's us and Jillian Carter and
Let me think. I feel like there's some.
I mean, our mates Katie, they've been around for about 10 years as well, which is wild because
Yeah.
we just released their first LP like 2 years ago. But
Oh, hell yeah.
that's just like, to quote their drummer, like, that's just because they're shit at being a band. like
I get it.
Like that, I'm literally quoting something that Laws has said before, like, you know. Oh
no, I totally
yeah.
understand. Recording shit and getting down to it and putting it out is so difficult, and I had never understood that before actually trying to do that. It was definitely an experience, so I understand that shit takes time.
Yeah. Well, they also like one of them's a teacher and the other
Right.
ones are in like a zillion bands and, you know, and all this stuff. So, you know, that's just like Laws being self-deprecating. Like that's I mean, that band is like they are amazing. They're great people as well. I when I put on their shirt like once a week, I'm always like, you know, I feel like I'm spending a day with the lads, you know. This is but yeah, so like, you know, you just said, you're like, yeah, I had no idea how much effort all of this was when it comes down to recording music and making music and et cetera, et cetera. And was this demo that you released in December of last year, was that the first time that you ever did that?
Yeah. So, I am no musician. I would not consider myself a musician in the slightest. I wouldn't even consider myself a vocalist. I would say that I'm in a band, and we do band shit, but I wouldn't consider myself, you know, any sort of musician in any sort of degree. But so yeah, this is the first time I've ever been involved in a band. Actually, there's a pretty long running joke for like the first 3 years that I was up until when I started, you know, the idea of me being in With Open Arms was a thing. The joke was that, you know, like the longer you stay in DIY, eventually I will probably be in a band, but who knows at what cost. So yeah, it was my younger sister, who's 2 years younger than me, or like a year and a half. Her friend Cooper, I randomly dragged him to see Stacia. I dragged my sister, I dragged Cooper, I pretty much everyone I knew. I was like, let's go see this band. And, you know, a lot of them went to punk shows before, but nobody really cared or knew who Stacia was. And so we all went, and it, like, you know, it blew us all out of the water, right? And so after that, you know, and Cooper had known screamo before that, but Cooper started like writing screamo songs, and he played guitar and was like doing bass lessons, and eventually we went and saw some other screamo bands when they toured through over time, and I made a joke one day about, you know, being in a band with him, and he was like, I mean, I'm down. I've been jamming with my friend Henry for a while, and so I went to, you know, them practicing one day, and I think they had like 2 songs they'd written, and I had no idea how to do vocal fry. I had no idea I didn't know how any of this shit worked. All I knew is that I liked it, and yeah, and then it just happened, and all of a sudden we were, you know, playing our first show with Infant Island, which blew my mind. Like, it was so insane because Infant Island is such an amazing band. yeah, it was not something I ever felt like I was destined to do. But yeah, the demo was the first piece of music I've ever released or been a part of.
That's awesome. And I gotta say that there's a book that I've read where it's a comic by David Mack called Kabuki, and I cannot remember the volume of it offhand that deals with this specifically, but I'll figure it out and I'll let you know about it
Please do.
afterward. But in it there's this whole section where he goes like he gets really like breaking the fourth wall with the book, and it's talking about like how everyone views art, whatever in whatever form that might take, as something you have to earn the right to claim, and it refutes that. It's got this bit in it where it's like there's a page and it's like, I want you to cut this out right now, and there's a little card on it that's like, this is like, it says like artist certification card or something like that, right? And it's like, if you ever draw anything, if you ever, whatever, if you ever do this, like, you're an artist, like, cut this out right now and write your name on it, because like you're a part of this conversation. And that's genuinely the way that I feel about this kind of thing, is like I feel like people are waiting around to be good at something so they can do it, or they're waiting around for someone to give them permission in one way, shape, or form. And I think that that's what punk did for me personally, is
Yeah.
it said, you don't need any of that shit. You don't need permission. You don't need to be good. You don't need to, like, you just got to want this so bad that nothing can stop you. And
Yeah.
so that's my whole thing is like, like, you were a vocalist the first time you picked up that mic, and even if it sucked, then it doesn't take away from it.
Yeah.
You did, it happened. It was a thing that happened, and so
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the big thing that punk taught me was, I mean, I grew up as a really loud kid. I've always, been a loud kid. I always talked a lot in class and was getting scolded all the time. But I didn't really have too many friends growing up, and so I was always kind of afraid. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing. I was afraid of, that if I was like to be myself, that it would be taken the wrong way. And it often was. I wore a lot. I had like really long hair and only wore skinny jeans and metal band T-shirts. And that didn't really stick in elementary school. But the first time I ever got involved in DIY, it taught me how to unabashedly take up space. And that's not something I'd ever really felt embraced by before. And so I fully agree. I think that like sometimes the idea of artistry or being labeled an artist or involved in DIY can be seen as like a club. And like that you need a membership for or whatever, and that it's exclusive. And I reject that, which is part of the reason why I try and reject like the label of being a vocalist. And it's not because I don't consider I think that's contradictory. It's not that I don't think I deserve to be called that. It's that I would never want it to make it seem like I'm like in a club that nobody else is in. You know what I mean? Like I dislike the label artist, not because I wouldn't say I'm one, but because I never want to feel like I'm in a club that somebody else isn't. Does that make sense?
I guess the other way that I look at it is that there's no, like, what we're doing is we're saying that there's no barrier for entry.
Right.
That's the, like, it's like if we're saying it's a club, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't,
Right.
that's up to you as a person to decide. Like, if that makes you feel better, like that you feel like you belong to this community because it is a community of artists, or however you want to look at that, then that's all
Right.
good to me. If you want to look at it like, look, like we're just all here, people here that are doing the thing that we love, like let's not put a
Yeah.
label on it, that's also cool. My point is like that we're saying everyone can be this and everyone is welcome, and like you're allowed to determine how you like present that, to like how you present yourself in that situation, or not, you know.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying
Yeah.
now. I agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like hey, if you want to say that's what you are, then that's what you are. If you want to be here, like you deserve to be here. And like, yeah, I mean, like putting a label on it is maybe a simplistic view of something, but like, you know, in as much as like if someone is like, what do you
Right.
like what are your hobbies, you know, then you're like, oh, I'm a vocalist, I'm an artist, or
Right.
whatever, you know what I mean? Like shorthand, I guess,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it simplifies it to make it
Yeah.
like more digestible for somebody.
For sure.
Also, for somebody who's not involved, if like my grandma was like, you know, what do you do in the band here, and I would say that I'm a vocalist.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to confuse the fuck out of her.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's funny. It's funny sometimes that how, you know, you can present that information, and then it also can get you into a conversation you don't want to be a part of anyway. You know, like the person at the post office that's ringing up my packages, like you know what? I really don't want to tell you what my band's name is, because I did.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't. You know, I don't want. I kind of don't want to get into this. Like I don't want you to look up my band and next time I come in here, like you say, like, you know, oh, here is a bunch of trans people, or you know what I'm saying?
Right,
like
right.
I don't yeah, but yeah, it's
yeah. I'm like, I'm not here for that. Like,
yeah.
Can you just ring me up?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to ship out my zines, man.
Yeah. I know that I have to tell you what these are, because like I won't get the right rate if I don't.
Right.
But let's leave it at that. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
No, I was at my grandfather's 80th birthday dinner. I want to say like a month or two ago or something. And like all of my family, like all of my extended family and stuff were there. And very sweetly and well-intentioned, I think my parents had told my family that I'd been doing the band stuff, and that I'd released music, and so I guess I'd had some family members check it out, and my sister, who is awesome and one of my biggest supporters, like we were sitting there with my aunt, and my aunt was like, so I've been hearing that you do the music thing, and I was like, yep. And she was like, I heard that you released that, EP, and I was like, yep. And my sister went, well, what do you think of it? and she went, I listened to half a song and I turned it off. And I went, that's awesome. That is sick. And I think that it should just be left there. Like, I feel like I don't want to explain to the normal average person what's going on, but if that's what it has to be, I understand.
Yeah, it's like that's what I would have expected, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work with you, then I make it for you, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered at all.
Yeah, I didn't expect you I didn't expect you at the next show or whatever. Yeah.
Agreed.
So like this was your first thing, and yeah, I don't know how long you all were, getting these songs together and everything, but
Yeah.
the first time when you like got out there on stage, like what was that like as far as like from what you expected it might be like to what it actually was like?
Oh my God. So I just have to laugh now. Um, so our, yeah, so I I never realized until the moment when I got out on stage is that I have crippling stage fright.
Oh.
And 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 so I got up on stage and I was like, fuck, what are all of my lyrics?
Oh no.
No, it was fine. Don't even worry. And then I actually, since I I'd never really, where we've been practicing was my guitarist's garage, Cooper's garage, his parents' house, and Cooper didn't have a PA system. And I hadn't figured out really how to properly do vocal fry. And so I'd never heard myself perform. So there was this element of like terrifying surprise that everyone else was going to hear my vocals for the first time at the exact same time I was going to hear my vocals for the first time. And so I had no idea what it was going to sound like. And that problem actually got fixed for me because I guess I wasn't pushing enough air, or the PA wasn't turned up loud enough, and actually the first mic that I used was broken. So pretty much for the entire performance, nobody could hear me. Which after every song, people were yelling like, turn up the vocals. Like, I can't hear it. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how this works. I got off stage and everyone was like, I couldn't hear you at all. And I was like, that's awesome. That's perfect. Actually, I want to say probably for our first 3 or 4 shows, I still really don't think anyone could hear me. But I think that worked in my favor because it gave me some more time to actually prepare. And so, yeah, the big other thing was that I was so afraid to move. I think I got paralyzed on stage. And so I pretty much just crouched the entire time. I think at one point I curled into a ball and was doing vocals. I couldn't really move. I couldn't walk around like I thought I was going to be able to. But I got off stage and I was like, I feel, even though nobody could hear me and, I couldn't move, I feel very euphoric right now.
Yeah.
And I think I was able to release some sort of something that I've been holding in that I had no idea I had in me. I still, oh my God, I still now have terrifying fright for shows, but I'm able to embrace it a little bit more.
Well, if I could say anything, it's that, Screamo is the right genre for just crawling into a ball on the floor and screaming.
Yeah.
That looks like it was just part of the show. If you did that in ska, that wouldn't,
it wouldn't fly. No.
Yeah, it'd be like, what is this? This is so weird. But for Screamo, it's like, wow, they're really getting into it. It's like, yeah, this is sick.
No, I used to have a lip ring at the time that I performed that, and I was so nervous I kept biting on the lip ring and fidgeting with it in between songs. One of our friends went to the show and took some photos for us. And I saw the photos after, and in the photos you can see I'm biting and fidgeting with my lip ring. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that that you caught that. That's so silly and embarrassing. And he was like, oh, I thought that was part of like the shtick. I thought you were just being emo. And I was like, oh, great. You can pretty much just run with anything here.
Yeah. I mean, you can be down there crying. You can take off your shoes and socks. Like that was a thing for a while back in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody did that. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you can totally always have your back turned to the audience. That's
Yep.
another thing. But yeah, it's the thing about not being like, I mean, I've been hundreds of miles away from my house on a 2-week tour, and you show up and you're screaming through a bass combo amp and no one can hear it. So it's like, that's not, unfortunately that's not a thing that ever goes away. Sometimes that's just something that happens. But I mean, yeah, the whole like thing about like once it's over and you're just like, that's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. What was that? That's kind of universal for sure. But you weren't having any of those kind of like feelings or whatever when you're just like practicing or whatever, right? So like, was it when you went to do the demo, which situation did you feel like you were more a part of? Was it did you feel like you were back up on stage, or did you feel like you were just at rehearsal doing your thing? Like, what was your experience like recording the demo?
So when we recorded the demo, we did it all ourselves.
Okay.
We recorded, so we tracked, so our old drummer, he was going to college. So we have a new drummer now. But we didn't have any plans for a drummer. And he was going off to college in, I think, a couple weeks. And so we were like, fuck, okay, we need to basically get drums down in one session. And so it actually took 2 sessions to record the drums, but we recorded the drums and all the guitar in Gilman during off hours. Otto, the bassist, did all the recording through an out of use mixer at Gilman and or like a soundboard into like his computer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did all the vocals separately in my bathroom at my apartment. And which I can send you a few photos of. They're really funny. But I actually, at that point, had still really not gotten vocal technique down. I still didn't really know what the fuck I was doing, or like what sound I wanted to go for, or what, like, what my body had as like a capacity, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I didn't like know what my range was. Cause I did choir in like elementary school, I think. But after that I had, I have no experience. And so I think we probably did 10 different sessions, and the first 9 are completely unusable. And so by the 10th session, the 9th or 10th session, those are the only vocals we used, because at that point I'd like figured it out to what I wanted to sound like.
Mm-hmm.
And Otto was super helpful throughout the entire process. I still felt like a deer in headlights, to answer your question, because the more that we started recording the songs, the more I realized that like actually some of the patterns of the lyrics that me and Cooper had written like didn't actually quite line up to the music, or there was a lot of spots that sounded pretty dull without vocals in it. So we were kind of writing the songs as we were recording them.
Yeah.
And a lot of those like layered guitars at like the end of San Quentin stuff, that just was an idea of Cooper's in between them doing 2 different sessions of guitar, Mm-hmm. So most of it was pretty much written on the fly in a way. But yeah, I think we all felt like deer in headlights. because Otto also had no idea how to use, what was he using? Like FL Studio or whatever, recording program he used.
Sure.
And so he was like, I would be like, hey, can you add like reverb on the vocals there or whatever? And he'd be like, yeah,
Maybe.
1 second. I'd hear YouTube pop up on his computer, and he'd start watching a tutorial on how to do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we all just like kind of learned on the spot, which was like a really awesome experience. But also nerve-wracking. I think we all just had a sigh of relief when it finally came out, because we were like, damn, we've been working on this for way too long.
Yeah. Well, it's such a different thing too, like going from like when you're playing and the drums are loud and the guitars are loud and you're in a room and there's 3 people sweating and everything is going on and you're screaming, to like it's just a pair of headphones like cranked as loud as you can possibly get them, and you're standing in front of your microphone and everybody's just like waiting for you to do your thing. It's like, how do I get that voice that is brought on by like 100-watt amplifiers to come out now in this room that's otherwise completely silent? It's like, it's a learning curve even for people that have done this for a while. So like, yeah, it makes total sense that it's like, everyone sort of coming into the creation of this at the same time, and there being like a learning curve with everything involved. But yeah, I mean, it came out great, and
Thank you.
I'm sure that whatever you learned you'll be able to take with you into the next recording, and
absolutely,
and plenty more time to YouTube stuff.
Oh my God, yeah, the YouTube playlist is probably massive on Otto's computer, because I think that we're probably just going to do the next one ourselves as well.
Yeah. It's very rewarding to be able to do it yourself, and like the creative freedom that you have, that which you have already touched on, like how like it's like, hey, if we're not paying somebody $35 or $50 an hour to do this, like we can just like, hey, wait, stop, I have an idea for a guitar part, and it might take 2 hours to like crack that, but like you can do that because it's your time, so
it's all the I guess time is money, but in DIY it's just whatever you want it to be.
When it's just you, then I mean, it's like, well, I would either be doing this or I'd be playing PlayStation, or whatever.
Yeah, literally. And like, I'm so lucky to be around like the super talented musicians that are in my band, and the patience that like Otto had with me while like I was basically teaching myself and like learning how to do vocal fry while standing there in my bathroom with a mic. Even though we'd already done, quite a few shows at that point, was like really, it was a really amazing experience, because I think it also gave me the confidence that somebody was like there willing to like, understand what it takes to like be confident in something like that. And yeah, it was really, really important for me. And yeah, and actually in the last session that we did with the vocals, like the very last one, we actually ended up recording it in my bedroom instead of my bathroom. And 2 friends of mine were over, and I was actually leaving. I think we finished recording at 11 p.m. that night.
Oh my.
And I hopped on a plane to New York the next day at like 7 a.m. But it was the first time I'd ever recorded with anyone else besides Otto in my bedroom. And I think, there's like 2 or 3 friends in like sitting on my bed. And that made me so much more nervous, because I was like, these people that I care so much about are like hearing this very vulnerable moment for me. And, they just stayed silent the entire time, and just kicked it for probably 3 hours or something. And they were super supportive, and that was like, that's all I really needed to know that I could like do it. It was really sweet.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I know I'm rambling, but yeah, it was really, really, it was very formative
Oh, that's
for me.
awesome. So, I usually try to keep these about an hour, and I feel like,
Uh-huh.
we really could just like, we could go on like 10 more tangents. But
Oh, probably.
you've got like, you've got all the band stuff happening. You've got,
Yeah.
it's Bucky fanzine, right? Now?
Yeah, Bucky, yeah.
Yeah. And you've got California Kicks Fest 2 coming up,
Yeah.
which like y'all just announced like the dates or whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but like I don't know how much you can say about California Kicks Fest 2 at this point, but last year's fest was by
Yeah.
pretty much all accounts like amazing, and the bands that were on it were like the best that are doing it right now. So we can all count on the second one being just as good or better, or I don't know. Like there's no, we don't have to get into capitalist like infinite
Yeah,
growth. It can
semantic.
be
Yeah,
just
of
as good,
course.
right?
Exactly.
But what all is what all is in the pipeline for you for the next few months? Like, what are your goals? What are you working on, and what can people expect to see?
So, people can expect to see in about, I want to say, a week and a half. They can expect to see the full lineup dropping.
Okay.
Oh wait, by the time that this drops, it'll have dropped a week prior, I guess.
Okay.
So we're not doing 2 waves this year of bands. We're just doing one,
Just
dropping
like,
them all at
here's
once.
it all. All right.
Here's everything. Because honestly, like at the spirit of California Kicks, we're a DIY fest. This is all people who are like DIY bookers, and it's me, Violet, then Corey, my roommate, who runs Ineffable Productions and does booking under that, and then Chris, who runs Heavy Lemon in San Jose and books out there, and then Viggy, who used to be involved in Lower Worlds booking, but the person he was working with on that, I think, moved to Chicago or something like that. But Viggy's just been in a million bands and always just been a great supporter of DIY. So, like, we all just come together and like, we continue to keep a DIY heart to it. And I think by dropping 2 lineups, it feels more pro. And while I feel like we keep it professional, I like just keeping it all in one. I don't like, it's nice to not have to keep any secrets from anyone.
Yeah.
But this year it's going to be in an actual venue. It was in one last year, but there was some surprises. We got to the venue last year because we chose to do it in a warehouse that we'd like gone through. We went over to the warehouse and checked it out prior. But 2 weeks previous to when California Kicks was supposed to happen, they told us that they were like, hey, actually, our original venue is shut down, but no worries. We're opening up a new venue 5 minutes away. It's in an even bigger warehouse. And we were like, whoa, sick. But when we got there, they failed to tell us that they had no running water or power or any sort of electricity into their new venue.
Oh, shit.
And we were like, oh. But they didn't tell us any of that. All of a sudden, I just start hearing a generator rev up. And I was like, wait, we're 2 hours to when the fest starts. Why am I hearing a generator? And I got some flashbacks from what we talked about before, doing all those generator shows in 2021. I was like, I know a lot about generators now. I know exactly what. So I run outside and I was like, so what's this? What are we doing here with this? And there he was like, oh yeah, this is what's powering everything. And I was like, oh, you're kidding. And so we had to end up rushing in. Luckily, my dad owns 2 generators. And so I called him up, and which I've used, countless times for shows. And I was like, Dad, I need you like here, like now. And so he came in and like saved the day and brought 2 more generators. We ran it in like an actual warehouse that looked like it was from GTA. And it was the only lights that were in the venue were these like tiny little like lights that plugged into the like PA system that were on the floor, and it was a great experience. But this year, we're hosting it at a venue that has 2 different stages, so that there's no surprises.
Hell yeah.
And but we're really excited, and the pre-show is going to be at Gilman, so we are very stoked for this year. But yeah, it's going to be a little different than last year in a lot of regards, which is great.
Awesome. What about the fanzine? What's coming up next?
Okay, so I'm releasing a zine in either March or April. It takes me about like a year or more to release a zine because 1, I'm lazy, and 2, I just, the moment I release a zine, I get like really bad writer's block. And so it's, the next zine is going to be all about the idea of travel. And it has interviews with Blood Brothers in it. It has, what else does it have? It has an interview with my friend's band Trains, an interview with Fight Fair, an interview with a local restaurant called Yamo, and like my trip diary when I went to New York this last year. Just a lot of fun stuff about the idea of travel that I'm ready to, publish when I finish formatting all the fun stuff. So yeah.
Awesome.
That's pretty much what it looks like coming up
Awesome.
for me.
And what about with Open Arms? Are there already more songs? Are you all ready to start that process of recording again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So all the music that came out on that demo, all those songs had been written about probably at the very beginning of when we started being a band. So April 2024. And so actually every set that we've ever played has had at least a new song in it every time. A lot of them get scrapped and replaced. But those 3 songs that demo are the only ones that have like stuck. But we have, I think, 3 or 4 other songs. We're trying to put out 5 songs by the time we go and tour to Southern California in April, and just put some music out, because we've been sitting on those demo songs for a while now, and we're ready to like move forward.
Awesome. You said you're going on tour in April?
Yeah, we're just we're gonna do a date. I think it's the 13th through the 17th, but don't quote me on that. And it's just hitting LA, then San Diego, and then the Inland Empire, and then we're gonna come back and play a hometown show. But it's gonna be really short considering our guitarist is still in high school, so
sure.
We have to work around spring break and stuff, and then the band breaks up in August of 2025.
Oh, that's already a thing that's happening?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Cooper's going to go off to college. So it's interesting to have like a hard deadline as a band, but it's an interesting parameter to work inside of.
Sure.
So and then it's over. But there's a lot of time between here and there. Sure. So not to rush anything. But that's pretty something that's already not completely set in stone, but somewhat up there. So yeah, it's exactly what we were talking about. The 2-year screamo time span is
yeah, for sure,
real.
Well, now that that's out there sort of in the world, then you can start taking applications for a new band in August.
Perfect. Yes. So hit my line if you live in the Bay Area. No, just joking. I don't know if I don't know what my next steps with music are after this. But I would like to learn guitar at some point, and actually understand what the music that we're writing is like built on, and understand stanzas and bars and all that fun stuff. that flies right over my head.
You'll have to let me know what that's like when you figure that out, because I have written a lot of songs, but I don't know the first thing about it. I just I just like writing songs, and that's good enough for me.
That, you know what? Maybe that's where I'll get to.
Yeah.
We'll see if I end up understanding what a 4/4 time means. But
oh gosh, our drummer, like he's always like, oh, this is in this time. That's interesting. Did you plan that? And I'm like, I have no idea what you just said to me. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, that's sweet. That's really cool. That means nothing to me.
I'm like, yeah, I'm really complicated, you know.
Yeah, you know, you're like, yeah, I'm so intelligent. That's why I did that. It was obviously on purpose.
Yeah, I was just like, you know, me and Geddy Lee and the people from Dream Theater. We were all chatting about numbers, and that's what happened. No, I don't.
Oh yeah, you know, me and Mozart were just sitting down the other day. He was explaining to me.
That's how bad I am at this. I didn't have like good frames of reference for, my joke, but. And that was my conversation with Violet Reed. Thank you so much, Violet, for taking the time to chat with me. I had a really nice time. I hope y'all had a great time listening as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the Middleman Records YouTube channel so you can keep up with the updates for the show. Also, give us a rate and review if you're listening to us on one of the other podcast hosts that you like. Until next time, take care and do good things.